Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and the problems in Canada seem endless, and we are seeing the vast results of mass centralization, and one of the examples is coming from this Globe and Mail article. It says, Canadians cut back spending on extras, essentials, amid rising interest rates, says poll. And as the article goes into, nearly 60% of Canadians have changed their behavior to brace themselves for rising interest rates by doing things such as cutting back on spending on both extras and essentials, a new survey from Manulife Bank suggests. Among those who have taken steps to prepare for higher rates, 27% pared back on entertainment, such as movies and bars. 17% put more money into savings accounts, and 10% spent less on essential items, such as groceries, the poll data showed. It's a good sign that some Canadians are being more prudent as interest rates continue to inch higher, said Rick Lunny, president and chief executive of Manulife Bank. And I quote, "It is encouraging that there is a large group of people preparing for higher interest rates. Young families, not surprisingly, had the most concern about debt. So if you are in a position where you can adjust your lifestyle, I think it's a good thing." The online survey of 2003 Canadians was conducted between May 11th and 14th after the Bank of Canada had raised interest rates 3 times since last summer, but before the central bank's latest hike in July to 1.5%. So he says it's a good sign. Well, let's look at this for a second here. So people are saving fiat. They're putting it under their mattress. They're saving for the future as it devalues again and again and again. We have vast centralization, propping up of interest rates out of desperation. We have vast regulations, vast taxes, the hidden tax of inflation that's hitting people in their wallets. And this is not a good thing. We need people outside of that system. We need people self-sustainable and independent and not part of the debt pyramid that we know is a central banking system and the government and the banking system as it stands. So we are facing so many problems in Canada. We are watching huge issues with bubbled real estate markets in Vancouver, Toronto, and elsewhere. We are seeing people, like for example, the Bank for International Settlements, I reported on this earlier this year with you, John, talked about how we are one of 3 economies most at risk of a banking crisis alongside Hong Kong and China as a whole. And, you know, we are seeing household debt just skyrocket over the $1 trillion mark. It's just almost at $2 trillion, I believe, $1.8 trillion last time I checked. It's just so ridiculous, John. And, you know, we have these people saying, well, you know, people are saving, you know, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Well, let's look at the symptom. Let's look at the reason. Let's look at what is happening to cause people all these problems. Let's look at the monopolization of major corporations by the government and pushing small businesses and employment out of the market. No more competition in the markets, no innovation in the markets. We have taxes, you know, income tax, business tax, property tax, capital gains taxes, sales tax, PST, GST, in some places MST, fuel taxes, eco taxes, and then carbon taxes, which is a tax on everything and just brings up the price of exports and imports. It's, you know, I just can't even believe how much vast centralization there is, and somehow how this is even holding up as long as it has. The banks are insolvent. John, go into this insanity, please.
Well, I'm gonna just show you my book because he forgot to mention people being responsible. He said in the article, well, how about being responsible about the biggest problem in Canada, which is debt, and actually getting rid of some of your debt instead of, you know, talking about, oh, it's so great that they're actually, you know, losing more, like they can't spend more on necessities and they have to, you know, go down because they're so heavily indebted that they actually have to take money out of other spending. That's ridiculous. Yeah, like they're so indebted. It's just beyond belief and insane that they have to do that instead of actually paying down the debt or actually not getting into loads of debt. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, get this for a joke. The regulations are in place to help the poor. The laws are in place to help the poor. The taxes are in place to help the poor. Well, let's see. The poor can't afford food. They have to choose between heating their homes and feeding their families during the winter.
The government subsidizes them, Josh.
Yeah. Well, and where do they get that subsidy from? They steal that from people, and then they subsidize massive corporations as well at the same time as pushing the small businesses out of the market and making poor people poorer. And it's great for the politicians. They're living very wealthy. Trudeau is sitting on stacks of money.
Well, they're like the new royalties, you know. They basically replaced the royals with stupid politicians. That's what we did.
Yeah, it's all virtue signaling. It's just, well, we're here for the poor, so therefore we're going to make people more poor and cause vast amounts of debt and create a huge crisis just down the road. And yeah, we can put it off for a little bit while longer, but the more we put it off, the worse it's going to get. But John, we have another article here from the Vancouver Sun. It says, at 53, an engineer realizes he has a lot of unprofitable real estate and not much else for retirement. 2 rental properties pay $3,700 per month before expenses, but bleed money after deductions for interest, taxes, and other costs. And as the article goes on to say, situation, retirement plans are uncertain for a man with 93% of assets and money losing condos. Solution, sell 1 condo, work 5 more years, cut spending, boost savings, sell last condo in late life. And Jack, as we'll call him, lives in BC. He has 2 financial lives. One as an engineer for an environmental research company, the other as a landlord. He brings home $10,422 per month based on his salary and annual bonuses, which are not guaranteed. He has 2 rental properties that pay $3,700 per month before expenses, but bleed money after deductions for interest, taxes, and other costs. Now 53, he wants to retire in 5 years. He wonders if funding his money-losing rental condos is wise. Jack's balance sheet is unusual. He rents his own dwelling, an apartment, from a family member and pays below market rent of $900 per month in exchange for doing chores. He also enjoys many free meals with the family. Jack worries that he lacks the savings to retire. He has just $81,000 in his RRSPs, including his employer's defined contribution plan, $5,000 in his underfunded TFSA, no non-registered cash, and $313,000 of mortgages and lines of credit. John, I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole article here, but what?
This is a very simple solution. Dude, your house is not an asset. You're not making cash flow on your house. You're paying money for your actual, like it was supposed to be an investment. It's not an investment when you're losing money on it.
It's only an asset when you sell it.
It's stupid.
It's only an asset when you sell it. And we have this at the same time.
It's not even an asset. Like he might be in negative equity. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And, at the same time, we see RSPs, the pension scheme, the pension shortfall is so dramatically high, trillions and trillions of dollars. And we're looking at, for example, in the United States, there was a recent study that showed the pension shortfall by 2050 is estimated to be around $400 trillion. $400 trillion, that's over 4 times the world GDP. Think about that. Think about the poverty. Think about the riots in the streets. Think about the level of insanity that will cause. And, we're not safe in Canada. People are dependent. They're dependent on the banks. They're dependent on the government to save for them because they think that these people that depend on the dependence of the populace and the debt of the populace are going to do good things and help these people. This is insane. People are being dependent rather than independent, and because they're being dependent, they bury themselves, they dig their own grave, and lack of education means lack of responsibility fiscally, financially, and lack of, an ability to save yourself, save your family in the inevitable event of a monetary crisis. And there's a huge Canadian Ponzi plan, as you've called it, John. Oh, yeah. There's a huge problem arising on the horizon. So, John, what can people do overall to avoid this, in your opinion?
Well, I would say one of the biggest things is getting out of a debt when you actually can't afford it. If you are getting into a loan, make sure you could at least pay a 10 to 15% on that loan if you get into it. Yeah. Not just, like the banks are running stress tests on people looking and see if the interest rates goes up maybe 1 or 2%. Like, that's insane. That's not going to happen in a crisis. You might be able to see, the all back in the 80s, which both our, parents have lived through, interest rates from 15 to 22% on your mortgage. How about that? Like, how about actually taking some risk into account into your financial life and becoming financially independent and understanding what money is? Raise your financial IQ. It's so important. Robert Kiyosaki talks about it. He actually even wrote a book on, financial IQ, how it's, the least, the worst IQ average in the world when it comes to financial IQ. Nobody is understanding how to manage their own lives and money anymore. They're just giving it over to the banks with the RSPs and the government, because the government, I'm just going to say one more thing. I know we want to get in there, Josh, but with the RSPs, it was just, a collusion between the banks and the government, because what the banks did is they are getting a whole bunch of money that people are forced into these RSP plans that the government said that you have to get into. And then, of course, the government is giving you a little bit of a tax deduction at the front end, so they could tax you 30 to 40% on a massive amounts of money at the end. And a lot of people that my financial advisor, one of the guys that I really trust, and I don't give too much money to him, of course, but he actually are knowledgeable, understanding, but they come to him. People are coming to him and saying that, they didn't know that they were going to pay 30 to 40% taxes on their retirements. So they didn't even save enough for their retirements. That's insane. That's a huge lack of financial IQ and understanding money. It's devastating, and it's really catastrophic for the Canadian economy, Josh. It's ripping, the fabric of society apart with all this mass indebtedness, because the banksters are ripping the hearts out of the economy, and that's what they're doing. They financialized it, they're stealing from everybody, and they're extorting, together with their government buddies, the whole populace.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And, the main point is, if you have control over your money, you can prevail. If your money has control over you, you will fall and you will hurt yourself, and it won't be fun. It won't be pretty. And, they want you, if you're shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you into perfect servitude to them, exactly where they want you. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. They always have, they always will, going back to 1024 AD in China, and this time's no different. But while the fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system and the markets, making it so that you cannot put a date on a crash, so it's inevitable, and for that reason you need to prepare. And one of those ways is by decentralizing your life. And I'm going to finish off with something, because one of the great things that people could do is food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver as wealth insurance, not an investment. And of course, this is all in our opinion and not investment advice, but nonetheless is very important. Yeah. And then of course, one of the great things that has come up over the last few years as an answer to the financial crisis in 2008 was cryptocurrencies that are decentralized, like Bitcoin and a few others. I mean, there's a lot of really bad ones. There's a lot of really bad ones out there. Be able to do your own due diligence and be educated and financially responsible, as that is a hallmark of freedom itself in the end. But with that said, I mean, there's so many great things about cryptocurrencies that can help you get out of this rut, and it's helping so many people, and it's a way for you to shut down the banking system. It's not the same as a centrally planned cash society, which is based on, legal tender laws. Everything's going through the banks, and it's never yours because it's always in the bank and you are enslaved to them. These centrally planned cashless systems are terrible. It's not based on the principle of subjective value, which is scarcity, application use, and demand. However, Bitcoin is based on scarcity, application use, and demand, though the governments want to get whatever they can out of it, because we see in China and India, they're the most cashless systems, but they attack cryptocurrencies constantly, which should, raise some red flags for those of you that think it's a mark of the beast.
They love it, but they hate it.
Yeah, exactly, because they want it to be controlled under their kind of rural structure and centralized structure. So this CoinDesk article says central bank crypto could bring economic gains, Bank of Canada paper says, and they're basically talking about how much they can make from cryptocurrencies. So first of all, I will say the bankers and government officials and all the bad guys out there that are getting involved in crypto, they'd be stupid not to, because their derivative system, their centralized systems, they know it's going to crash, and they need to prepare with that and gold and silver as well. So that's a great example of, that's the system that people are kind of flocking to, and they know it, and that's a good sign for us. But at the same time, they say that it'll cause economic gains for Canada. Well, they're talking about stealing your money, which is futile, because I've gone into this before. If you look at the Credit Karma study, I think it's 0.04% of people actually declared their Bitcoin to the IRS last year. No matter how many laws, no matter how many regulations, no matter how much legislation they pass, this organized crime cartel we call government and central banks, they try to push these laws forward in order to regulate, spy on you, and steal your money. It's futile. They're going to lose. They are desperate. So yeah, they're saying economic gains, just like they ban cannabis and then they legalize it so that they can steal people's money and monopolize the industry by government's hand.
Well, by economic gains, you got to remember, read the book The Curse of Cash by Ken Rogoff. Well, those economic gains are the possibility to tax more, because they looked at the countries that are heavily, massive governments that are taxing the most. They are really struggling because they are not getting enough tax income. So that's what it is. It's stealing more money because they have full control over every single transaction, every single move that you make with a cashless system. And I just got to say, I highly regard you read my book if you're Canadian. Canada, the greatest economy in the world. Go on Amazon,
Question mark.
check it out. Yeah, question mark. That's the biggest thing, right? And I go in great detail of what we kind of touched upon here in the video, just so you get an understanding. And I actually have some solutions at the end as well, which you also touched a little bit upon there. So it's time for you as a Canadian to start to take charge in your life and read up and increase your financial IQ and go out there and make your life a lot better.
Be resistant to rule, folks. Rule yourself, decentralize your life, be self-sustainable, be independent, because that is the last place they want you to be. They don't want you to be independent. They want you to be dependent, because then you end up like the rest, a cattle in a field eating the grass, feeling really free because you have grass to eat, but in the end you are surrounded by cage and you will be led off to the slaughter with a smile on your face, with the chains you revere, with the absolute apathy of the masses. So please break free, folks. Decentralize, rule yourself. Don't submit to this massive coercive entity, this organized crime cartel we call governments and central banks. Thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
Be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized by YouTube as they bring in the ADL to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to check us out there and find us at Anarchapulco 2019. I know it's early, but this is such an exciting event coming up with Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, all the usual characters, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope to see you there. Make sure to check the link for Anarchapulco below and use promo code WHAM to save as much as 15% on your tickets. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.